Hello and welcome to another episode of Not Too Deep. I'm your host, Grace Helbig. Very excited to have musician, actress, and all-around lovely human being, Katelyn Tarver, on today's episode. Last year, she just released her very first full album called Subject to Change, which has a lot of beautiful songs about just kind of being in the middle of something, feeling a little stuck, feeling your feelings, going through all of it, which I think is something we can all relate to. We get to talk about what it's like creating that album, what her general creative process is, how being on the reality show American Juniors in 2003 jump-started not only her foray into entertainment, but her entire family's foray into entertainment. We talk about feelings a lot in this episode. And so I think you will enjoy it and hopefully have something to relate to. Katelyn is a very introspective and wise person. So I really hope you enjoy this episode of Not Too Deep with Katelyn Tarver. Katelyn, I'm so excited to talk to you. You are a multifaceted artist. And so I'm very curious to hear from you how we got to where we're at right now. And also, like, what do you, if someone asks you what you do, what do you say?
I guess simply put, I'm a singer, songwriter, and I also act. So I guess I do all of those things. But you know, it's a weird existence at times because I feel like one of my favorite songwriters right now, named Maddie Diaz, I think she said this in an interview, like, my job is to have feelings. Which I thought was a really good way to put it, because it can be confusing to me even to answer that question. I'm like, what do I do? I have no idea. Literally couldn't tell you what I do. But yeah.
So how did we get into art, into the world of feeling feelings?
So, I mean, I feel like I always have to start it with, like, I did this reality show when I was 13.
Yes. American Juniors. Yes.
Right. Yes. So some people saw it. There was only one season in 2003, and it was like American Idol for kids. It was like Ryan Seacrest was the host. Okay. We had different judges, but that was the general idea of what it was. And I was obsessed with the first season of American Idol. I heard Ryan announce they were doing one for kids. I loved to sing, and I was like, cool, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to audition. And so my parents luckily loaded us all up, and my sister and I both auditioned, and I made it pretty far on that show, enough to where it got me to LA, and then it got me singing on the show every week. And my family was plucked from Georgia, and we were staying in this fancy hotel in West Hollywood, all piled into one room.
Amazing.
And I don't know, we just all kind of see that as a pretty pivotal moment in our lives, because after that, we all just kind of became obsessed with the idea of being in this business. Because now my brother's an actor. I do what I do. My little sister is also acting. So we all kind of got the bug. And so essentially that's, the short version of how I kind of found my way, or found myself out here doing this.
Sure. Okay. So you said you and your sister auditioned. How was the tension or support post you making it and your sister not?
It was obviously disappointing. But yeah, she's the most supportive person in my life. I mean, she was 9 at the time. I was 13. So it was
just a beginning core memory, just to give her a little bit of what Hollywood's like.
Taste of what it's really like. It was definitely challenging, but she was excited for me and continues to be excited for me and everything that that we're doing. We're all pretty supportive of each other, luckily, and not too
Yeah.
not too competitive. And
I'm very curious about what it's been like to have siblings that are also involved in the entertainment industry. Have you guys, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying, you guys support each other, obviously, but then do you guys go in on same auditions for things ever?
Well, so far, not really. Like my older brother is an actor, so we're not going out for the same roles. But it's funny because he's on a show right now where he has a sister on the show, and I auditioned to play his sister.
Can you imagine?
It was hilarious. And like, I knew it probably wouldn't go my way, but I was also like, wow, it's really sobering when you can't land the job you were literally born to play.
You literally play every hour of every day outside of this audition.
That's the true meaning of this business is summed up in that. But no, for the most part, it's been okay. And my sister's sort of just starting out. So we're not going out for a lot of the same roles yet. But, I go through that with friends, and it's just kind of a part of it. And you just can't take it too personally.
Yeah. I mean,
easier said than done, but
it must also be nice to just have a built-in support system like family that's going through and experiencing the same wild world of Hollywood that you are.
It's super nice. And I haven't really experienced it without that. So I don't even know. It's like wild to think, because I'm like, I don't even know if I would have had the guts to stay in this if I didn't kind of have my family to lean on and kind of understand what it's like.
Yeah.
So it's really nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
But so you've done acting, but now it seems like you're much more focused on your music.
Yeah.
So you've been making albums, you've co-written with Cheryl Cole, you've recently, as of last year, Subject to Change is your most recent album that came out. Talk to me about, I'm so curious, I'm not a musically inclined person, but I'm fascinated about the creative process of creating an album. What's your process like for that?
Well, this was really my first album. So I've done, I've obviously started out way back on American Juniors, and I've sort of, somewhat been doing it since then. But I really feel like I didn't find my kind of creative voice as a songwriter, as a singer, until probably around 5 or 6 years ago. And so that's when I started releasing stuff a little more consistently and kind of, trusting my abilities and getting a little more confident in it. And, so I put out some EPs, which are kind of 4 or 5 song little collection, mini albums, basically.
Yeah.
And then I was just putting out some singles. And then, last year, kind of late 2020, I was like, I'd really like to do an album. I'd really like to kind of reach that milestone as an artist and have that kind of feeling of working really hard on one project and having it all kind of be one body of work. And so, it was cool to kind of get to build something like that and think about it in those terms. Whereas before you're kind of just, I don't know, it can feel like you're sort of throwing things out there to see what sticks and I'll try this, I'll try this. And so it made me feel a lot more in charge of what I was doing and a lot more hands-on of okay, this is kind of what I'm writing about. Seems like I'm sort of circling around these themes. Why don't I lean into that and kind of see where that goes? And I don't know, I just felt way more like it was mine.
Yeah.
And, that was a really rewarding thing to do as a artist and as a creative person.
Yeah, I guess I've never really thought deeply about the difference between an EP and an album. And it must be pretty substantial to think that you're just going to throw a couple songs out there, but this one is going to be kind of a thesis statement into something.
That's exactly what it feels like. Yeah, you're okay, I've sort of written my little papers, but this is my real presentation. And I think the good and challenging part of the music industry right now is anything goes. It's not so much the old formula of person gets signed to major label, person writes their album for 3 years,
right,
and puts that out and tours on it for 3 years. Like it's so much more of like a quick turnaround. So people are doing multiple EPs a year or just singles and so it's really like kind of in your hands, like what you want to do and how you want to do it, which is like simultaneously freeing and a little paralyzing.
Yeah, it feels like I get analysis paralysis all the time when there's too many choices on something.
Yeah.
And it seems like, especially with, social media and internet and everything, like the way you create is truly up to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's what was really nice about deciding to make the album was like, I'm going to make this decision to make this full length thing and I'm just going to stick to it and like just do it. Because And I like waffled on that even after making that declaration to myself. I was like, well, should it be 2 EPs? Like I just was so back and forth, but I'm glad I decided to just kind of stick to it and put out an album. It felt different. It felt like exciting. And now I'm just kind of like, it's out there and people are finding it and it's really cool.
Because you released it last year and then you toured around for a bit with it at the end of last year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was that like, especially, in these times when the artists, especially musicians, being able to perform live has much more variables to it now than it used to. What was touring like?
Yeah, it was amazing because I hadn't done it in so long. And so it was just really, really fun to be like, oh, we get to like play shows again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I only did, I ended up actually having to postpone the last show because it was here in LA kind of right when everything was starting to get a little scary again. So I played only 4 shows. So it was like just enough to sort of feel the feeling again. But by the 4th one, I was like, okay, I kind of remember how to do this. Like it was definitely, I was a lot more nervous than I'd ever been and a lot more just like, how do I do this? But there's nothing like getting to actually play the songs live. Like, and especially, it sounds cheesy, but it was like so much sweeter after having not getting to do that for years. Like, because you can't really compare like putting songs out on the internet and like Instagram and, all the things that we have now to like actual in-person, connection, singing the songs together and seeing how it really feels to people in the room. Like I just was so excited to do that again. And it was so fun. Yeah, I miss it already.
I know. It feels like you were just getting momentum and then the world was like, we're going to hold off a little bit.
Yeah.
Were there any weird experiences, any notable audience moments in the shows at all?
I feel like what pops in my head, so it was like the first show back in New York and it was like a packed room. It was amazing. And I sort of like when I'm on stage can really just get going on a tangent of just almost like I'm like I think I'm like a stand-up or something up there. I'm like,
I was going to ask what your like vibe is on stage.
Well, it's funny because I think a lot of my songs are very emotional and like introspective and on the like kind of more heavy side. And I think people come to shows and I'm I'm actually kind of bubbly and
and charming and like doing well.
Wait, why do you write these songs? Like, I'm confused. But it's just I guess my thing. But I was sort of I think I was going off on this bit about like how if you live in LA long enough, like you automatically just kind of end up with that co-star app on your phone. Like
yes,
it's just like somehow you have it and you're like, what time was I born? Because it just becomes very important at some point. Like asked enough, like, what's your sign? What's your thing? And so it's just funny because I was like talking about that. And I was telling a story about how I'd gone to this party and there were like these teens there and they were talking to me and they were like, what's your sign? And I was like, Scorpio. And they were like, oh, my God. And I was like, what does that mean? And they were like, well, let me see your co-star. And so I give it to them and they look at it and I'm like, Scorpio in 2,
Yeah.
whatever. And they were like, oh my God. They were like, you're insane. And I was like, I am. And they were like, this makes a lot of sense why you write the songs you write. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I was like going off on this story and people were laughing. And then all of a sudden this person yells out, how old are you? And I was like, what? Nothing. And it was just a funny,
that they were secretly just plugging in your birthday to try and figure out more about you to see if you were actually a Scorpio.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
But yeah, that was a funny moment that kind of sticks out. But
it's great.
It's fun.
I do think that one of the things that worries me is the teens and astrology combination. I don't know if it's going to work out for the best. I hope so.
Who knows? But maybe they're onto something. Maybe I am. That's why I'm.
Maybe they are. Yeah, the holders of all the truth in the universe.
Yeah. Well, hey, if that gives me more like license to be crazy, then I'll.
There you go. I'm also curious.
Blame it all on that.
Like you said, creating an album, you're putting so much like thought and emotional energy into it, and then it gets released into the world. And then what happens after that? Like, what happens now? You kind of sit and bask in it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm living that in this very second. I'm kind of like, okay, what now? Like, I put the album out almost 2 months ago, and there's very much like a slump that happens which I was expecting, like, because it's so exciting and so much anticipation, and it's always more fun to anticipate something than for it to happen and it to be done.
Yes, very true.
So it's sad that I can't anticipate the album release anymore. I'm like, well, it's out. And so, but I'm trying to I think it was really fun to get to play the shows kind of a month later, because I kind of got to, enjoy it with people who were also enjoying it. And that's always a good feeling. And now that I'm kind of back in LA, it's a new year. I'm just trying to kind of stretch it out as long as I can, because I did work really hard on it and I put a lot of time and effort and energy, and I'm really proud of it. So I'm just trying to kind of let myself chill for a second and be proud of it, and just be like, not kind of succumb to that pressure of like, what's next? Like, you gotta keep it up. Like, I don't know. I'm going to start writing again. I'm always writing, but I'm just trying not to, panic. I feel like that's a universal kind of thing for everyone to handle right now. But the songs that you have on this, and just the overall concept of like subject to change, I do feel like touches on like a lot of universal kind of like feelings and emotions that people have gone through in different capacities over the last couple of years. Is there a certain like sentiment or feeling that you want people to take away from the album? Yeah, I think I just really wanted to kind of capture this feeling of like being in the middle of something. Like, I think there's a lot of emphasis on like going through something and then getting through it and getting to the other side and being able to look back and see what you learned. And I don't know, like a lot of my real experience in life and my friends and just kind of what I see is like life is kind of always constantly messy and good and bad and sad and happy and just kind of all of it. And I think for a long time I was, and still do, I mean, still am. I think it's just kind of a human thing. It's to always kind of be looking for like this thing that's going to click in, that's going to make everything feel right or secure or safe or like you're kind of like, okay, cool. And I think obviously as we get older, like things do sort of shift and click into place a little bit more easily than they did when we were like early 20s or teenagers or whatever. But there's kind of, I think there's always going to be this sense of like, what am I missing? What do I need? Like, and I don't know. I just was thinking about a lot of that, and I started therapy, and it was like
Hell yeah.
a big deal for me in going to therapy was like kind of expressing these stressors that I had, these confusing things I was going through, and allowing myself to just say like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel. I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know, like that was just a bigger deal than I thought it was to be able to kind of let myself sit in a mess for a second.
That's literally what I talk about with my therapist as well. It's just like the being in it, and that's okay. Because it's always, I think people look retroactively at the past for answers, or they seek the future to be like already over something or out of something.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than sitting in the middle of an uncomfortable feeling and being like, what do I do? Like, how do I make this go away? And it's just, like, unfortunately, it's just not that easy.
Yeah.
And you're never going to get to a different place if you don't allow yourself to kind of sit in the discomfort. And I don't know, that's, you know, it's not like every song is like pointing back to that feeling, but I think as a whole, it was just kind of touching on a lot of those themes, and the idea of change and kind of being in progress and being open to that instead of resisting it was sort of like what I was thinking of.
I think that's great. And I do think it's something that maybe as like an emotion doesn't seem so glamorous or so like, it's so easy to write about like a breakup or like, you know, the worst thing, but this is like not the worst, but it's also not the best, but it's still significant in that.
Right. Yeah. And there are relationship songs on there. There are breakup songs, there are sad songs, and, you know, but it's all kind of a part of it, I think. Like, I think even if you're going through something like that, there's a lot of conflicting feelings you have. It's like nothing's ever like cut and dry, simple. And so I just find that interesting and sort of try and analyze it and write about it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, we'll let everyone sit in that for a second, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Just sit in that.
Yeah, we'll be right back. We're not too deep.
Not too deep. With Grace Helbig.
Hello, listeners. Grace Helbig here, wanting to say two things. A big thank you for listening to the podcast. If you're a regular listener, if this is your first time listening, welcome and thank you. And second thing, if you are enjoying yourself here in this not too deep world we've built and you'd like to leave us a review, that would be so wonderful. If you can go to the iTunes store, the App Store, and leave us a lovely little review, comment. How are you feeling? Good, bad, otherwise? Maybe just good or otherwise would be appreciated. Other than that, enjoy the podcast. I'm also very curious. One, your husband's also a musician?
Well, he was. He was in a band back in the day. Okay. He's not anymore, but yeah. I mean, when we met, he was in a band.
How did you guys meet?
We met through a mutual friend, like a year after I moved to LA. So we were really young.
Oh,
and
sweet.
And then that's kind of how we met. But yeah, he was in that band. It was in a band called This Providence. They were kind of in the like pop punk emo world, like Warped Tour and stuff like that.
Yeah, like Czech bands and everything.
Yes, yeah. So he was in that for a while, but yeah, now he manages musicians.
Oh, nice.
Stuff, and is a designer and stuff. So
in terms of one, that's a major collaboration, but I'm also curious artistically in collaborating, because you've written songs for yourself, you've written songs for other people. When do you, like when you write something, how do you know if it's for you or for someone else?
That's tough. It's hard to like have a answer that's like, this is exactly
universal.
how.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's just a feeling like, I don't know, I can get usually like for the songs that I've had that have gone on to be recorded by another artist, I knew pretty quickly it wasn't for me. Like sometimes you just write a song and you just kind of want to serve whatever the song is saying. And it's not necessarily something that you feel super connected to or, as an artist yourself.
Sure.
So sometimes when you're like, oh, okay, like I think I could let that one go. But a lot of times it's like pretty immediate when it's like, oh, why don't you send the song to someone else? And I'm like, no, it's mine.
I love it.
So I try to listen to that, but I don't know. I think I'm trying to get into that more, like writing with and for other artists. So I think it'll be interesting to see as I do it, like how that will go and how I'll kind of decipher that, because I think it's tough because I want to bring the same level of like care and effort to someone else's song as I would if it were my own. So I think I love them all, but it's just sort of a feeling, I guess.
Yeah. Well, on that note, when you are looking for collaborations, do you have a way in which you kind of link up with people? Do you kind of seek other people out, or do you look for more organic situations?
It's
kind of a mix of everything?
Yeah, it's a mix. Like sometimes you'll just get paired with someone you've never met and you've maybe heard something they did, but sometimes you haven't. And it's just like, you guys, I think would be good together. Like publishers or managers or, people put you together. And I've done a lot of those sessions where you just kind of like end up in a room with two other people.
Oh, wow.
And you can kind of feel pretty immediately that you don't necessarily click, but you're then expected to like write a meaningful song that's good.
Wow.
So over the past like few years, I've definitely whittled it down to at least like if I'm writing something for myself, I like to kind of choose from a handful of people that you just kind of naturally click with. They already kind of know your life and your background. And those always seem to make for a little bit better songs just because you don't have to like go through the rehashing of like, well, I went through this and then this, and this is how I feel about it. So I like to kind of write songs about this and that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like do the whole
it's like like speed dating, it sounds like.
Yeah, it is. No, it's like that we call it like blind dates. Like it's like, I have to do like a blind date session, like fingers crossed. But a lot of times those sessions can introduce you to the people that you love. Like I met one of my producers who I work with all the time just by being set up blindly.
Oh, wow.
And you just like are in the room and you kind of can tell you speak the same language and you're like, oh, I think we get each other. I think we have like similar brains.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing, but yeah.
I guess you have to trust your intuition a little bit on that kind of stuff too.
Yes, you have to it took a lot of like growth for me to be like, hey, like if you're not clicking with someone, that doesn't mean you're not good at what you do. It just means like maybe he's not or she's not the one to like help you write this song. And because I can always tend to be like, I need to do whatever it takes.
It's me. It's me. It must be me.
Yeah, I'm trash. I'm not talented. But once I, wrote with people who I felt like I had the same brain, like it made all the difference.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Now, what are your thoughts on the social media aspect of all of this? Because like now, obviously, it's like part of the job description for creatives to exist on there. What's your relationship with that?
Gosh, I feel like it's like up and down because I try to look at it as a tool that is useful of like, okay, like this is kind of cool that you can go directly to fans and people can give you feedback. And when it's positive, it's cool. And you can get a like sense of, what people like and what they don't. And, it's a fun way to share your personality. Like I try to see the good in it. But, and like you said, just sort of like accept the reality that it like is a part of it now. Like as much as But at the same time, it's like, if I really hated it, like I don't know that I would force myself to do it, because it's also just like, if I can feel myself getting burnt out or looking at it too much, and, I can always kind of sense, like, if I start out the day looking at Instagram or whatever, and I follow a bunch of other artists, I follow a bunch of other songwriters, like I follow a bunch of other people that do what I do, and that comparison thing starts to kick in. And then like 4 hours later, I'm in a terrible mood, and I'm like, oh, I wonder why. Like, because I'm living this like fantasy world of like, why didn't I want that? And I think that's just what it is. Like, I think that's just a part of it. But I don't know. It's definitely complicated, and like there are so many days I think it can get overwhelming when it feels like you have to just wear 1 million hats. As an artist now, it's like I feel like I sometimes can't just like focus on writing a song. Like it's like you write a song, and then how do you market it? And then how do you put it on TikTok? And like, what's going to be the most effective strategy? And like, blah, blah, blah. You have to like wear so many hats, and then it just starts taking all the magic out of this thing you made, because it's just, you're the one, like, I want it to try and remain as pure for me as possible. And like, once it's like, so this song's sort of touching on like relationship problems. Like, what kind of relationship problems do you have? And like, you think you can like talk to someone about it and like promote the song that way, and you're just like, ew, like this is now all of a sudden gross. Like, and so there's a lot of layers to it, and I try to like do as much as I can, and I just kind of accept the fact that it's like, sometimes it's going to feel gross. Sometimes it's going to feel tiring. Sometimes it's going to feel like I could be doing a lot more and I'm missing opportunities. Like, but it's just kind of one of those things that I am like, if I'm an independent artist. So like, I don't have a massive team with millions of dollars behind me. So I'm just like, I have to do this. I have to like, make this part of my career. So how can I do it in the healthiest way for me personally, and not like look too much around at like what works for someone else?
I'll say that I think you do a great job with it, because I do feel like your social media, just in doing research on you, reads authentically as you, and you have a good sense of humor about it, and you don't seem obsessive about it, and you don't seem cookie cutter about it. Like, it just does feel authentically you, which is why I always like to ask people that seem to, from afar, have a healthy relationship with social media, what they actually think about it. But it is, I'm with you. The same thing, that it's like a love-hate relationship, and learning the balance of it is so much easier said than done in practice. But
I'm also like in my early 30s. So like, I didn't grow up with it. Like I didn't have it when I was in high school to the degree that it is now. And I think that's helped me not, like, I don't even understand what it's like for younger kids now. Like, it's so much a part of your identity. Like, what do you present? Like, that seems like very overwhelming to me. And I don't know. I think that my age helps a little bit with just being like, okay, this is like a thing, but I don't. And it can be stressful, but I don't know. It's just a thought I had.
That you do. I'm with you. That you do remember your life without it. And for all of these.
I mean, barely, but I'm like, one time I didn't think about like how I would post something about everything that happens.
And Gen Z will never have that experience. God bless.
I'm sorry.
Not too deep with Grace Helbig.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you the two questions I ask every single guest that is on the podcast. The first is, who, alive or dead, would you like to throw cold spaghetti at?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And this, I will say, just as a caveat, so it takes a little bit of the pressure out of it, that it's just whoever in this moment right now comes to mind. I like to think that this is an answer that changes frequently for people.
Right. Because I feel like if it's cold, if you're throwing cold spaghetti at someone, you maybe don't like them.
It's truly your intention. It can be celebratory. It
It's your
can be a
fun.
prank. It can be for fun. It can be for good, or it can be for evil.
Okay. Well, maybe it would be like Ashley Olsen or Mary-Kate or both.
Mm,
And maybe
yes.
maybe it's fun. Like we're having dinner together and we're so close that it's like, oh my gosh, girl. And you just throw
A little toss.
and they're like, you're crazy. I'm a big MKNA stan.
Oh, same. Yeah. I like that answer. I hope if it happens, I get to be a fly on the wall when it goes down.
I'll hit you up for the hang.
Thank you. The other question I ask every single guest is to tell us your worst pants shitting story or like a bathroom emergency situation. However, you can only use 3 words or like small phrases to describe the event. So, for example, mine is college, jogging, front lawn. Yes, quite a time.
Okay. Let's see.
And it doesn't have to be pants shitting. It could be any sort of bathroom crisis emergency.
All right. Gosh. I'm trying to think of how to translate this into the
I feel like we get a little insight into your songwriting creative process right now too.
It is. It's a lot of looking up and being like, okay. Let's see. A few years ago,
Okay.
casting office,
Oh
call
no.
back.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough situation.
You know, the nerves.
Yeah.
The nerves really amplify.
Yeah. The body does what it wants.
Body. No, there's no stopping. At the most inconvenient of times.
Oh, well,
But I made it through.
that's good. And I assume you got the part. So.
No. But not because of that, I don't think. Although now I'm rethinking.
No, rehash it.
Could have been like, well, maybe
In hindsight.
in hindsight, that would have been my downfall.
Now we have a section of the podcast called Deep and Hot, where I've prepared a deep question for you. And I'm curious about your hot take on kind of like a topic-ish that we have for you.
Oh man,
So
really me.
this is we're getting your brain going. If you didn't get deep enough in therapy, here we go.
The year, okay, woo.
Deep question for you is: when do you think it's better to walk away?
In general,
I guess I would attribute this for you in terms of like creative endeavors. Have you ever found yourself getting to a point where you're like, either this collaboration or this song or this idea, like at what point do you realize like I have to abandon this?
I mean, for me, I guess I think I don't know, like what comes up is like me thinking about, if I'm working on a song or if I'm working towards something, I really want it, but it's just not working out.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put so much effort in. I'll just like squeeze every bit of effort and put it into something and be like, it has to work.
Yeah.
And it's like feeling just like it's not clicking or it's just not working.
Yeah.
And you put like so much effort and focus and like obsession into it. Then I'll let it go. Like, but I mean, maybe like to a bad degree, like will obsess over stuff. Like if I'm just like, no, it has to work. It has to be this certain way. So
well, you sound like someone that doesn't like to give up on something.
No. Yeah.
Which is very admirable.
Yeah, I think so. But I think could stand to like what what I try to get better at is like loosening my grip on things. It's like there's so many different paths and ways you can get to something you want. And if you're obsessively holding on to some one idea or one way, you could maybe be keeping yourself from getting there a different way or finding something new that you weren't looking for that you end up loving. Or I don't know. I mean, I'm speaking about this now in terms of kind of like life path and like what you do. And obviously in what this industry is, there's a lot of, I came up with one idea of like one version of success, one way to get there. And if it doesn't look exactly like this, then I'm a failure. And I think that's just not true. And as I've learned to kind of loosen my grip and be open to different things, it's opened up, new opportunities that I didn't see coming or expect. So
great.
I guess that's kind of what it makes me think of.
Yeah, I think that's really important for people to recognize too, that there is not always one way to do something or to achieve something.
It's usually going to be like, usually your version of like what you think you want or the way to get there, it's usually going to look different.
Totally. This kind of goes in line with this. The hot take, I'm curious about just your thoughts on evolving as an artist, or, kind of growing or changing your aesthetic or tone or quality or whatever it is. What are your thoughts on that?
Let's see.
Because you kind of mentioned earlier that like 5 years ago or so is when you felt like you found your voice and kind of your style. Do you feel pressure to evolve that over time, or do you just kind of pay attention to who you are when you're creating and let that speak for itself?
I think I do. I mean, I've definitely evolved a lot as an artist over the past few years. I've released, way poppier music. I've wanted to be this certain type of artist. And I think as I've kind of just embraced my instincts and what comes a little more naturally, I've seen more success that way. Like not necessarily like in terms of like, oh, more money or more numbers, just like just creatively, it feels like it clicks. It feels like, oh, this comes naturally to me. This comes easier to me. This is kind of more second nature. Like, why am I, I think I, for a long time, resisted writing about my life, my like actual experiences. Cause I was like, oh, well, I want people to be able to relate. So don't you have to kind of like cater that to what you think people want to hear?
Oh, interesting.
Of kind of just sharing or thinking that like, oh, if I'm having these experiences and thoughts and fears and like insecurities, probably a lot of other people are too. So why don't I kind of write about that and know that it will speak to whoever it's supposed to instead of like forcing it. And that really opened up, I think, a lot for me, because I think it gave me more confidence to like, if I have a thought during the day or a view about something, maybe that's what I should be putting into my music instead of something that I think people want to hear.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like
totally. That it's not like a Hallmark card, that you're an actual person that is experiencing something and as a human being.
Yeah, I think it could just, so that's what I think about if you think about evolving as an artist. For me, it's just like, how do you kind of keep getting closer and closer to that like core you?
Yeah.
The thoughts only you can have. Because, we're all unique. Everything we're going to create, even if it's about similar things, it's going to have a different feel to it. And I think for a long time I was like, well, I can't talk about this because everyone else is talking about it, or everyone has already been said. And
sure.
I think just letting go of those things and just trusting your instincts, trusting your thoughts and what you like. Like I try to like, what would I want to hear in a song? What would what would I like to hear said or expressed, and how can I do that through my music? So I don't know. I think my goal is to just kind of keep doing that more and more, and like stripping away these kind of like walls I put up of like, oh, I want this certain thing or to be perceived a certain way. Like, how do I just kind of keep peeling that away?
Well, the therapy is nothing but helpful in that regard.
No, it is. It's very helpful.
Katelyn, we've reached the end of the podcast. This has been so lovely to talk to you. Before we wrap up completely, we like to give our guests a little token of our appreciation, and that is a personalized horoscope from us to you. And we are not astrologers.
I dream.
At all. So if you don't mind reading it aloud to the class, that would be wonderful. Melissa, just put it in the chat.
Okay, here we go. Okay. Scorpion of the stars, your ruling planet Mars will move into Capricorn near the end of this month, which means it's time to put action behind your thoughts and words. No more waiting for things to happen a year from now.
Hey!
I get it. I get it. I see what you did there.
It's out there.
The title of my song. All right. Point taken. I'll get my act together.
Your act sounds pretty together.
I do a good job of making it seem like it.
It's great. Well, for people that don't know, where can they find you? Where can they listen to the music? Where can they get access to you?
Most stuff, my music, Instagram, all that, it's just my name, Katelyn Tarver. So if you pop that into Google or Spotify or Apple Music or wherever, I'll probably come up. And just don't be alarmed if you find really old photos of me from like 2005. Like just try to look.
Oh yeah, we didn't even get into the big time rush of it all.
But yeah, you'll probably see some big time rush stuff pop up, and just be supportive, please.
Yeah, and then maybe you'll be out in some live shows over the course of this year. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm actually opening up for a band in the spring. They're called Johnny Swim. So we have a tour booked. We have the dates set.
Great.
It already has gotten postponed once. So, we're fingers crossed. We're crossing our fingers.
Nice.
So that'll be in March and April. So
sweet.
Yeah, I'd love for anyone to come out and listen to the music. If you like it, come see a show. I'm hoping to play a lot more shows this year. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah, this has been so fun. Thanks for having me.
Of course, guys, go check her out. Get into all the music, see the live stuff, etc., etc. Get into therapy if you're so inclined.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next time on another episode of Not Too Deep. Goodbye.
Too deep, too deep, too deep, not too deep with Grace Helbig.
Not Too Deep is a production of Grace Helbig Incorporated, producer Melissa D. Montz, edited by Shireen Lani Yunus, post-production sound by Chris Henry, and an extra special thanks to Flula for the theme music.